While differential association and drift theory focus on learning theories of crime, control theory focuses more on the internal mechanisms that help a young person avoid delinquent behavior. The core ideas of control theory is based on the idea that human beings need to be held in check or controlled through mechanisms, otherwise youth will engage in delinquent acts. Control theorists believe that youth will engage in delinquency because controlling force is absent or defective. Containment theory, which is used in control theory, presents the idea that there is an inner control system and an outer control system. The idea is that a strong inner containment system and a reinforcing external containment system work in concert to provide insulation from deviant behavior. Hershey theorized that individuals who are most tightly bonded to positive control groups such as the family, the school, and successful peers are less likely to commit delinquent acts. Commitment to the social bond is made up of four main elements: attachment, commitment, involvement, and beliefs. Attachment refers to having relationships with others that have conventional beliefs. Commitment refers to conventional activities and values. Involvement refers to spending the majority of time doing constructive activities, leaving little time for delinquent behaviors. And belief refers to having a belief system that would forbid delinquent behaviors. Social control theory cannot explain all acts of delinquency, but it has more empirical support today than any other explanation of juvenile delinquency. At the same time, its value is more for youth that commit less serious acts of delinquency. Social control also does not properly explain or describe the chain of events that happens to weaken social bonds. For example, one study found that parenting and delinquency had a reciprocal bond, meaning that as the delinquent behaviors increased, it appears to affect parental attachment, which decreases, meaning that the parent's bond to the child starts to weaken when delinquency increases. Hershey later teamed with Michael Gottfredson to develop self-control theory. In their publication in 1990, A General Theory of Crime, Gottfredson and Hershey stated, "People who lack self-control will tend to be impulsive, insensitive, physical as opposed to mental, risk-taking, short-sighted, and nonverbal, and they will tend, therefore, to engage in criminal and analogous acts, which would include smoking, drinking, using drugs, gambling, having children out of wedlock, and engaging in illicit sex. It seems reasonable to consider them as comprising a stable construct useful in the explanation of crime." This lack of self-control, according to Gottfredson and Hershey, can be assessed using 6 factors that often lead to thrill-seeking behavior. These are failure to defer gratification, absence of diligence and necessity, adventuresomeness rather than caution, physical activity preferred to cognitive behavior, self-centeredness and indifference to the suffering of others, and minimal tolerance of frustration. This general theory of crime proposes that low self-control combined with criminal opportunities then lead to the outcomes of certain behaviors, including delinquency as well as smoking, drinking, and status offenses. There has been some criticism of this model due to what other theorists would call conceptual clarity. The theory cannot explain all types of offenses or offenders. Even though there may be flaws with the model, however, there is continued interest to explore this model and replicate studies in order to further test it. I thought it might be useful at this point to review some of the main points of what I had discussed thus far and give you a comparative slide. And while I did not discuss Walter Reckless at length in any of the previous slides, I did mention his containment theory. And so he's mentioned here because his theories did draw from Matza and then further develop Matza's model, while also to some extent informing Hershey. This slide allows you to compare the basic premise of each model and also gives you some idea of how much supporting research exists for each model.